This is the fourth video I'm recording today. Losing my voice a little bit because I'm on chemotherapy, and one of the side effects of my chemotherapy is that my mouth gets very dry and I can't talk properly. This is finally a non-cancer related video. This is about my music teachers and kind of the influence they've had on me. So I'm going to talk about three music teachers today. My music teacher at school, who was Mr. Elder. My friend Edward Nichols, who is kind of my closest friend, and I spent most of my time with him out of school. He was at a different school to me growing up, and taught me loads about music and introduced me to lots of amazing music. And my friend Phineas Skipper, who probably had the most influence on my musical tastes, I guess, more than anyone else, even more than my parents, despite the fact that I grew up in a house with lots of really good music on all the time, basically. I'm just trying to adjust the camera. It's very disconcerting because the video is flipped, because the idiots at Apple can't design software. So, Mr. Elder was my school music teacher. He was a massive influence on me, although I didn't really know it at the time. He was a big influence on me, kind of in terms of how I appreciate music, but far more than that, he has been a huge influence on my ideas about teaching and how I teach. I've taught children and adults off and on for a long time now. Taught them, trained them, various things, in various domains. So I'll talk about a bit about him first. So it's kind of ironic that although I absolutely unequivocally hated all my time at school, basically, and university as well, ironically, particularly at what was called secondary school, I had some outstanding teachers, and Mr. Elder was one of them. And, didn't really appreciate it at the time, although I do remember always looking forward to his lessons. And I remember being in the lessons thinking, wow, this is a really special thing. This is kind of a privilege. Actually, I might make a video later on the word privilege because it's been abused and twisted so much. Anyway, that's another matter. So one of the things that Mr. Elder taught me, he was the first person to, and one of the only people I think who's really taught me to appreciate lyrics and kind of how to take them apart in a good way. Like often at school, particularly English literature is the worst for this, where maybe with good intentions or whatever, for some reason you're taught in a destructive way. You get Shakespeare and hack apart the language, and it's just pathetic. But Mr. Elder, I remember he was really good at teaching us how to analyse lyrics in a way that deepened our enjoyment instead of taking away from it, subtracting from it. I remember a favourite one of his was the lyrics of "The Fool on the Hill" by the Beatles. Now I'm not a Beatles fan at all now, but still it was very interesting looking at those lyrics with him. But really the kind of profound impact Mr. Elder had on me was really about teaching. He really knew how to teach. And his teaching methods and his kind of insights apply to all teaching and all training. I'd say, in fact, particularly to training, and I'm going to explain that in a second. But just talk about one thing that he did, which was we do music composition. So we'd sit there with paper with a music stave printed on, and we'd sort of compose these little things. And then when you felt you had sort of composed enough, you'd go and stand next to him with your little bit of paper, and you'd give it to him, and he'd look at it, for quite a long time. And now I guess he was sort of playing the music in his head, and he'd sort of see deeply into it, and then play it. And usually you'd be composing for the keyboard. He'd play what you did on one hand and do an accompaniment with the left hand. And just from whatever the pupil had composed, he'd somehow bring out something amazing from it without exception. And just the feeling you got from that, how wonderful it is. And I didn't understand at the time, but that's actually the key way that we should teach, really. It's one of the most powerful teaching tools, because what it does is it bridges the gap between the pupil or the student's kind of creative vision. And it bridges the gap between that and their skill at that point. And their skill may be pretty fucking close to zero, particularly with stuff where there's a high barrier to entry. I openly condemn the piano as a musical instrument because it has a very, very high barrier to entry. It's hard to get your stuff to sound like music on it. Whereas something like going from kind of beating out a rhythm, on a desk or whatever, and then augmenting that with a drum or whatever, or kind of brass instruments, wood instruments, the kind of thing of like, moving to humming through circular breathing to. Obviously, circular breathing is a bit of a barrier as well, but still, nothing is worse than the piano. But anyway, it's a very, very powerful thing if the teacher or instructor can get the pupil or student's creative vision and help realise that despite this huge gap. And actually the world's greatest living teacher is a guy called Timothy Galway or something. He's the greatest living teacher, and he teaches tennis. And one of the things he does, the same thing that Mr. Elder did, so he gets the student to stand with a tennis racket, and he throws the ball at the tennis racket. So it's very, very easy for them to return the ball. So the student gets this experience of returning the ball in a very, very controlled situation, and then the instructor slowly opens it up, throwing it faster, throwing it at different angles. So the student is able to focus their mind on returning a ball that's coming to them in a way that's easy to return, that kind of matches their skill, matches their potentially very, very low skill at that point. So just that one thing I got from Mr. Elder has had a profound impact on what I think about teaching, how I try to teach. And just other things like he always gave us enough time to kind of muck around at the keyboards, or to sit there with headphones on. He really encouraged us to muck around, and just a really exceptional teacher. He was also probably the first person I met who had a really good voice, really, 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 really good voice, like a voice that you just love to listen to. So yeah, he was an incredible music teacher. And in the unlikely event that he's watching this, thank you. Really, really appreciate it. Okay, next, my dear, dear friend, Edward Nichols. He introduced me to just loads of amazing music. He was the only person I knew who bought singles and music magazines as well. And remember, kids, this is before the wide availability of internet access and the World Wide Web. So you know, your exposure to stuff could be quite limited. You'd like go and look at the CD collection in a library or whatever, or copy stuff off the radio onto a cassette tape, if you remember that, like a bizarre plastic strip inside a cassette with tiny little magnets that got aligned by a write head and then read by the read head. Anyway, so I grew up at a time when kind of this genre of music was emerging called Britpop, kind of indie and indie pop and stuff, and twee pop, which I wasn't familiar with at the time. And Edward Nichols was kind of really introducing me to a lot of that stuff. First person to take me to live gigs at the local university and one of the local nightclubs. And yeah, so he was introducing me to stuff, because I guess because he was a year old and also a different school, he would introduce me to stuff that maybe was the same genre, but that my friends at school weren't familiar with or exposed to, whatever. And yeah, I just so many happy memories of listening to music with him. Groups like, you know, Blur, Sleeper, Menswear, Pulp, Suede. Particularly Pulp and Suede have become very important in my life, I guess, still are. And yeah, just wonderful to be exposed to, again, all the stuff on the Edge, Mercury Rev, even just stuff like Smashing Pumpkins, a lot of US stuff, and just individual songs that meant a lot to us at the time, because he would buy singles. He'd sort of get stuff like I remember this group Skyscraper that did a single called Never Again. It's just fantastic. We just listened to it again and again and again. Or a Scottish rock group called China Drum, and they did a cover of Kate Bush's Wuthering Heights. So Edward Nichols was the person who could have indirectly introduced me to Kate Bush, because it's an amazing cover, amazing rock cover of Wuthering Heights. But of course, the actual the original is orders of magnitude better. And although I'm not a fan of Kate Bush's music, I'm a huge fan of her as an artist and just as a person, because she is a rare example of someone who has thrived in a disgusting industry. The music industry is disgusting, at least in England. I'm probably sure in other countries, well, certainly in Japan as well, absolutely rotten to the core. People involved tend to be subhuman scum. The main tool of the music industry is that a talent spotter will go, a talent scout will go and find someone who they like, who they think will do well, and then they'll sign them up for like a 12 album contract or an 8 album contract, something insane like that. And then what happens is, even if someone's really good or a group's really good, they're not going to do more than 3 decent albums. So what will happen is, say that they do 3 good ones and they're politely but firmly recommended they've got an 8-album contract, and then do the 4th one, which is pretty poor, and maybe a 5th one that's terrible. And the record company basically says to them, kind of Rumpelstiltskin style, you promised us your firstborn son, whatever. Here's the way out. You can buy out of the contract. You owe us 3 more albums, but if you sign this paper giving up all your royalties, all your rights to this back catalogue, then you don't have to make these 3 painful albums that may result in your damage to your mental health, possibly your death, sort of. So that's how the music industry works. And in fact, at the time of Britpop, which is the age of the CD single, they had this other horrific practice which just destroyed so many good groups, and it was called versioning. And I'm not really sure why, but somehow they found that they could make more money selling singles than albums. So a group would do an album, and then the record company would demand 6 singles to be released from the album. And typically what they do is they take maybe 3 singles and then do 2 versions of each one with different B-sides. So let's say the group's recorded a 12-track album, and then 6 singles get released from that, and each with 2 B-sides. So somehow they've recorded an album, they have to record another album's worth of material just for these singles. And that utterly destroyed some very good groups. So Kate Bush has somehow, obviously she was in the music industry a lot, 20, 30 years before Britpop. 20 years before Britpop. 15? I don't know. But she is super intelligent, and she hated touring and refused to tour. She hated wasting her time going to the studio and being under strict time limits and not having stuff how she wanted, so she built her own studio at home. She's been very artistically strategic about who she records music with, her partnerships and stuff. Anyway, very, very smart person who Edward Nichols introduced me to her music indirectly. But loads of other stuff. I just remember some of the happiest times of my life just hanging out with him, listening to music. So on to the third teacher who has kind of had the most influence on my musical taste, Phineas Skipper. I never really asked him much about where he got the music from, but he just had such a range of incredible taste. And I was thinking recently, what does it mean when we say someone's got good taste in music? And it's obviously, we're thinking kind of in connection with us. And I think what it really means is that person introduces us to music that we think we are not going to like, or we listen to and we don't like, and somehow later on we start really liking it. So this happened, with Edward Nichols. I remember him introducing me to his favourite Suede song at the time, which was The Power. Whereas I preferred stuff like Metal Mickey and particularly Heroin. But after listening to The Power again and again and again, it really, really grew on me. And it's now kind of one of my favourite songs of all time. And Phineas Skipper just introduced me to the weirdest stuff. He'd make these fantastic mixtapes for me with incredible attention to detail, wonderful inlays. I'm actually very upset that I had to get rid of a lot of that stuff when I went to Japan. He introduced me to... He sometimes introduced me to groups that I kind of had heard some of their stuff, but had kind of... they'd somehow passed me by for some reason. So groups like the Jams, also known as KLF, K Foundation, groups like Huggy Bear, just came up with a list that I'm going to very rudely look at on my phone. Le Tigre from Canada, Peaches, a whole bunch of stuff from the German record label Kitty-O. That people like Peaches were on, also Chili Gonzalez. Atari Teenage Riot, Kraftwerk. Again, Kraftwerk, I had heard some of their stuff, but Phineas was the guy who really got me into it. Moldy Peaches, Equator, who did one of the mixtapes. Finn put an Equator track, "Give Me Nichol All Night Long." Huggy Bear, Gil Scott Heron, Revolution Will Not Be Televised. I can't remember the person, but he did a really good, on one of the mixtapes there was a kind of a tribute to that called The Revolution Will Not Be Between These Thighs. Who is that by Sarah Jones. So yeah, Finn would just introduce me to this incredible music. So I'm super, super grateful to that, because it's let me enjoy loads of music that I would have dismissed or not really got into. So groups like Melt Banana from Japan that Finn didn't introduce me to, but I found and would really like, and I would have just dismissed them. So in summary, I am deeply, 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 deeply grateful to my three music teachers, Mr. Elder, Edward Nichols, and Phineas Skipper. And loads of other friends who have introduced me to various things, but those three people have been massively influential on me. And just how incredibly enriching that's been to my my life. Other than technology and anthropology, probably than mathematics, the two things that really matter to me a lot are comedy and music, and just being introduced to that incredible music has been wonderful. It's been really, really, really wonderful. And so thank you so much to the three of you for making my life so much better than it would have been, if I had just listened to the same kind of stuff that everyone else listened to. It's now coming up to midnight, so I'm going to finish there. Cancer link is at matthewdons.org, so that's where you can donate. Please share that link if you can. matthewdons.org. Thanks for listening.